Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I do know that I'm speaking to people who want to know about a very unique category of trauma. Last time I presented trauma in adults. And right now, I have gone deeper to explain to you about vicarious trauma. Not many people knows or have heard about vicarious trauma, but it occurs. This is a process of change. Vicarious trauma is a process of change. And it happens for those people who care. And they care the traumatized people. And therefore, in that process of caring, they're committed, they want to assist, they want to help such kind of victims, survivors. They find themselves changed. They find themselves affected psychologically, emotionally, behaviorally, and actually, if you're not careful, both of you, the survivors or the victims, and you or the helper, you just find yourself in the same situation. So that is what we call vicarious trauma. That occurs, it affects mostly the helpers, those people who help, professionals, and we need to be careful. So, as I have said before, that the categories of people who undergo such kind of trauma, they are professionals, trauma counselors. We have also medics. As I said before, those who attend injured people, and especially in hospitals, doctors, nurses, all those hospital attendants, they undergo through vicarious trauma. And most of them, probably they do not understand traumatized. They think, they pretend they are ardent, they're okay, they're fine, but they are not well. Just be allowed to say so. Now, let me go further to help you understand, or to help us understand vicarious trauma. There are several places or several incidents that someone gets in or visits and find himself being affected by the incidents or the event and walk out feeling feeling unusual, abnormal in a way. For example, what do I mean by this? This unusual feeling is like, let me just say, vicarious trauma brings or involves a shift of someone's worldview. A shift of someone's worldview. And therefore, he finds himself or herself not really functioning. And this repeated exposure of those traumatized areas or traumatized people, attending traumatized or attending injured people, this repeated incident or exposure, it's not recommended. Someone needs to take care of himself or herself. Now, that's a bit of clear about vicarious. Let me move again forward and try to explain several concepts that really will help us also to make distinction exactly what is it, this trauma, vicarious trauma we are talking about. There are concepts or terms you use like burnout, compassion fatigue, stress, and so forth and so on. For example, compassion fatigue. This is just emotional and physical lethargy, exhaustion, and someone find himself undergoing all that experience because of empathizing with these victims, with these survivors, listening to those screams or cries of people, and therefore you find yourself you are going through compassion fatigue. And I've had so many actually doctors and nurses and even counselors who attend people who are traumatized saying, I have a fatigue, but they do not know exactly this is what we call compassion fatigue. Then there are other categories of people who use the word or the term, the burnout. This burnout occurs because someone is in a toxic environment. Toxic environment, he's working, trying to meet the ends without having time to take care of herself or himself. And therefore, you find yourself, you are in what? You are burning out, you are running out, the mind is running out, and therefore, those are the terms I've chosen to really explain or to make distinction between vicarious and vicarious trauma and them. Actually, both of them, the burnout and compassion fatigue, they do not shift the worldview of a person. That's also a difference. And also, they don't need to have gone through they don't need to have traumatized event or experience. But they are, all of them, trauma experience. I hope we are clear there. Let's move on to the symptoms of vicarious trauma. Symptoms, we have emotional symptoms, where someone is agitated, irritable, he or she becomes irritable, feelings of grief, anxiety, distracted most of the time, and this particular person generally feels unsafe. Walking up and down, he's not safe at all. Then we have behavioral symptoms, whereby you find these particular people just find themselves isolated. They want to be alone, and they have what we call altered eating behaviors, either too much of eating or less, sleeping a lot, many hours, and you find this particular person doesn't really get to know what is going on. He's just moving on for instance, eating and eating and eating, and you just hear someone saying, nowadays my appetite is good, but it's not issue to do with appetite. There's something he or she is reacting on. Then we have physiological symptoms. This is just emotional and physical area. It affects physical and emotional area or well-being of a particular person. For instance, headache, we will have rashes, ulcers, and maybe heartburn. And therefore, you find yourself, you're doing what? You're just saying, let me go get some flu, whatever medication, and you're well. You're sorted. Not really. Then we have cognitive symptoms. This is a place where you find yourself making decision, concentration, the flow of thoughts are really not really working to you, and you find yourself, you're not functioning well. Check out, my brothers. Then we have what we call spiritual symptoms. Spiritual symptoms, these are for the people who are Christian. And I believe I'm talking mostly to Christians, where you find yourself, you have lost hope. Yeah, decreased sense of purpose. You feel you are disconnected at all with others, even with God. And the feeling of unworthiness, you're hopeless and you do not deserve anything. Those are spiritual symptoms. If you're undergoing those kind of feelings, just take care of all that. You might be undergoing what we call vicarious trauma or trauma by itself. Let us now discuss, or let me share about how do you handle this vicarious trauma, because these are for the specific people, yes? As I said before, professionals, those who help others who are injured, who are in accident, in wars already, in shooting and so forth. So how are they supposed to do? How are they supposed to handle such a situation, vicarious trauma? Number one, recommendation number one is therapy. Go for counseling. Look for counseling services. And in doing that, you will be helping yourself. You'll be helping yourself. Number two, self-care activities. It's very important. For instance, these self-care activities are just mostly normal activities like jogging, reading books, enjoying nice music, maybe gospel or music of your choice, journaling, hobbies, pursuing your hobby. Try to involve yourself, to engage yourself in those self-care activities. Again, another issue or another way of handling vicarious trauma is training and supervision. These are people, for example, doctors, and those who work with the security forces. They undergo or they go through traumatized materials, and therefore they need to be trained on how to use those materials or those resources, and also go through also supervision, so that they will be in a position to limit or in a position to handle trauma. Then, again, they can as well also form a peer supportive group, whereby they meet together, they share about their experiences, and in that way of vending out the experience, they're getting better and better and better. And still, I need to say that spiritual intervention is very important. And let me be allowed to say that Bible, it's about person. It talks about everyone, human being, and it has all interventions of everything that occurs in human being. An example is trauma or vicarious trauma. Those who are listening to me, when you read the Bible, when you listen to gospel music, when you interact with the Word of God, praying, praising, and worshiping, you find yourself, you are no longer the same. You are no longer like before when you started doing that. It is important to interact with the Word of God and have a good relationship with God. And therefore, that is an exceptional tool to handle vicarious trauma. Finally, we have what we call medication. There are people whose symptoms are expected to be combined with all what I've said plus the medication. And therefore, this particular group of people who needs medication, which is also good for them because they need medication. Therefore, I recommend you people to go for medication. And this medication definitely just anxiety and antidepressant drugs. God bless you. Thank you so much. I hope you have understood what vicarious trauma is.